So what I was going to say in regards to this, I have to be careful with what I say. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read these things. And you can come to your own opinions, and I will add no commentary. I know you guys like my voice, my dulcet tones, my wonderful elocution, my perfect enunciation, my excellent spelling and reading ability. I am in no way a fumbling, dyslexic mongoloid who barely knows a single language. So let me get a sip of water, and then I'll read some stuff. And I warn you, I will read some stuff, but I have no commentary on it. In the United States District Court for the District of Utah Central Division, Plaintiff Russell G. Greer versus Joshua Moon, publisher of the Kiwi Farms and Kiwi Farms, a website, defendants. Plaintiff's supplemental memorandum in support of his motion to stay. So the plaintiff has filed a motion to stay. The motion to stay was replied to, and generally that's how it works. So from my understanding, the way that filings in courts work is that the person actioning a filing submits a whole and complete filing, everything they could possibly hope to say, with foresight to make sure that there is no holes to be poked into it, and they submit it to the court. And then, of course, the time that it would take to reply to such a motion is considered in costs. And if it's not worth the time to reply, sometimes it's let slide. Like if it's just asking for trivial stuff or for certain technicalities, there's a certain level of professional courtesy where you don't oppose every motion, but a lot of motions get opposed. And so when you write your opposition, you write a big long letter addressing every single point that you want to make. And you try to make this as whole and accurate as possible. And that is usually the end of it. There's almost no reason to reply to this. Like this doesn't continue on in a conversation forever. You file, they counter, and unless there is a serious, egregious error that must urgently be addressed because it is so profoundly bad, perhaps an outright lie or something that would like seriously, actively do what they call prejudice the case against you, then you just let it go and you let the judge make a decision based off those two filings. You don't go back and forth forever on every single issue. So plaintiff files a motion to stay to get 90 days of time. You file your opposition, and the judge will look at both and say, okay, well, let's do this. We're going to go side with one party, or we're going to, how about halfway down, we'll give them 30 days instead of 90, something like that. That's usually how it goes. The plaintiff in this case has decided to file a supplemental memorandum in support of his motion to stay as a reply to the opposition to his motion to stay. This is unusual, so let's read it. Plaintiff Russell Greer has received jarring information that bolsters his motion to stay and demonstrates why there would be hardship if a stay were denied. Email notifying plaintiff. This is how Russell would read it, by the way. I'm trying to read it as close to how he would read it as I think is possible. So I'm trying to get some confidence in my voice. Email notifying plaintiff to opposing counsel fundraising off of quote-unquote lolcows. On February 7th, 2024, plaintiff received a harassing email from Kiwi Farms user, or from a Kiwi Farms user, a Matthew Burns. In case you're wondering, I cannot find any Matthew Burns on the Kiwi Farms. This email not only mocked Greer by calling him, quote, pipsqueak ratmouth, but directed plaintiff to the fact that opposing counsel is fundraising off of the current case, Exhibit A. The link leads to lolcalfund.harden.law. The link leads to a lolcal litigation fund and has a short blurb and crude drawing of plaintiff, Exhibit B. The link appears to belong to Matthew Harden, opposing counsel, and shows that $150,000 has been raised. As the footnote says, lolcows are people who can be milked for laughs. While defendants and their donors might think this case is hilarious and they think Greer is a foolish quote-unquote pipsqueak, dealing with Kiwi Farms has been a nightmare and he seeks to end his nightmare. Paragraph 2. Why this evidence supports a stay? Actually, let me read the footnote. As journalist Ali Breland points out, the users call their victims lolcows because their pain can be milked for laughs. This group made its purpose clear on its Twitter page before it was taken down. Quote, gossip and exploitation of mentally handicapped for amusement purposes. The website's, quote, the website that wants you to kill yourself, Mother Jones, 2023. The article goes on to explain Kiwi Farms users deploy significantly or slightly different tactics for various victims, but the rough beats say the same. First, the group assembles extensive dossiers. Then it uses the information, some true, some contorted, and some fabricated, to torment their targets. This is exactly what Matthew Burns, quote unquote, did to Greer. Paragraph 2. Why this evidence supports the stay? This evidence supports the stay because it shows many different things. Profound. By the way, he's complaining about look at this. I just want to say this, point something out. Quote, in quotes, as in, this is literally what it says, lolcow litigation fund. Lolcow LLC litigation fund. We are in year 3 of this litigation. And when this was filed, it sued Kiwi Farms, a website. Kiwi Farms, a website, is owned by Lolcow LLC. And even in this filing, it falsely says Lolcow litigation fund, seemingly omitting the LLC part. The company is literally Lolcow LLC. And this has never been acknowledged. I just want to point this out. It's not a reference to the people. This is a reference to the company to whom it supports. I would consider that a significant issue. Number 1, defendants and their counsel are fundraising off of this case and off of Greer's apparent quote-unquote lolcow status. Shows that defendants are well-oiled and ready to last a long time. Dude, that's my dating profile description. I'm well-oiled and ready to last for the long run. That's an advertisement if I've ever heard one. Number 3, and put simply, this evidence points to the hardship requirements as laid out by the 10th Circuit. Spahn Eng Associates versus Weidner. If a motion to stay is denied, Greer will potentially lose the case because he is outmanned and outpowered by defendants because they have the funding to have a lawyer. If Greer loses this case, Kiwi Farms users like Matthew Burns will taunt and harass Greer for the rest of his life. Greer's copyrights will continue to be infringed. Greer's career as a songwriter is dead because of Kiwi Farms users tarnishing Greer's works, which works against their fair use argument. Defendants have raised $150,000 off of Greer. Plaintiffs have seen none of the money for having his likeness or copyrights used, and so Greer kindly asked for a stay to acquire funds himself to the appellate counsel, to retain his appellate counsel at the district level and thus properly vindicate his copyrights. In light of the new information showing that defendants are fundraising off of this and thus showing how serious the matter is, plaintiff respectfully reiterates his request to stay the case as laid out in document 77, respectfully submitted by what appears to be a pubic hair caught in the scanner, aka Russell Greer, a pro se litigant. This is seemingly a standard signature at the end of the document, just something of no consequence, but actually is of consequence. Plaintiff affirms that service was made to defendants via the court's electronic filing system and personally emailing opposing counsel on February 7th, Matthew Hardin. We'll get to that in a second. In the United States District Court, District for the District of Utah. That's a long name. The United States District Court, District for the District of Utah. It's not just the District of Utah, but the District for the District of Utah, Central Division. Russell G. Greer versus Joshua Moon and Kiwi Farms, a website. Response to notice regarding erroneous certificate of service. So Hardin responded to this in 2 parts, and one of them said, I was not serviced, which seems weird. Let's read what he has to say. Plaintiff Russell Greer responds and says that this has already been addressed. This is true. The same exact thing was complained about before. This was addressed in Doc 79. Once again, plaintiff does not have access to the filing system. This has been established. Greer emails his documents to the document department and so the day he emails them to be filed isn't always the day when they are filed. Once plaintiff receives the receipt, he emails the documents to defendants, as it is quite silly to have to change the date. Additionally, plaintiff was only emailing defendants the motion to stay documents because it was an emergency. Normally, plaintiff will rely on the filing system, and the defendants don't email Greer documents. Any further notices regarding this filing date contention should be viewed as frivolous. So it is we who are frivolous. We are the frivolous ones. Also, was services made to the defense via the court system, and that said attorneys for the defendant Matthew Hardin. Greer is not emailing Hardin. This sounds like a trivial thing, but I want you to imagine how frustrating this is. You file something called an emergency. You put an emergency motion into the court system, and then you email the clerk of court and you say, this is my filing, here you go. And because he's right, he's a pro se litigant, so he doesn't have access to the court system. Instead, the clerk has to file it for him, no issue. Because he can also just email Hardin, no issue. But to quote my learned lawyer, and I hope that he was being serious when he says I can quote him, he's a fucking moron. And what does that mean? He is lying about emailing Hardin. And it's not that he can't email Hardin. It is that he chooses not to. Because, for instance, in this complaint, where he sends this exhibit, this was actually sent directly to Hardin complaining. Which he made a matter of public record because he filed it as an exhibit. So he complained to Hardin about his crowdfund and had no issue emailing him. But when it comes to this, he does not, for whatever reason, he chooses. And the belief is that this is a deliberate choice because now Hardin receives notification about filings through Pacer. When it gets actually added to the system the day after he emails it to the clerk of court, then Hardin gets an email from Pacer saying that there's a new filing, when he should be notified as soon as it's submitted to the clerk of court as a CC. And that's all he has to do. CC Hardin into the fucking email so that he has the full amount of time to respond to emergency orders or requests. Doesn't get done. Very bizarre. Then, finally, plaintiff's response to defendant's notice of supplemental authority. Plaintiff Russell Greer responds and says that the email from Andrew Grimm doesn't disprove plaintiff's motion to stay the case. The email provided by defendants clearly shows Grimm saying that the Digital Justice Foundation currently does not represent Greer, but the Digital Justice Foundation was reserving the right to represent plaintiff. This is exactly what plaintiff explained in his motion to stay. Hardin took advantage of this unequal playing field by inquiring of plaintiff's appellate counsel. The Digital Justice Foundation answered no because the kinks and logistics of district court representation were being worked on. As stated in the motion to stay, there are a few stipulations they want from plaintiff before. Okay, great. So, as I was saying, the issue is that he literally does not have the money. He's contacting these people that represented him for free because they wanted to score a win in the appellate court, and he's asking them to represent him in a lower court. He's in fucking Utah. They're from LA. LA lawyers ask for a lot of money, like $900 an hour, a lot of money. So Greer thinks that if he is given 90 days between filings, that he will be able to afford these specific attorneys. Now, he has had years to acquire representation. Years. He filed on his own 3 fucking years ago. He had months after the appellate decision was reached because the Digital Justice Foundation would have informed him that they're only representing him in the appellate court and not the lower court. And he knew after then that he could find representation. And he didn't file any kind of stay of anything until after the motions came in. After his answer was, or his complaint was answered, then he decided, oh, I need time to work to afford an attorney for litigation that I can drop it literally any time. I played that. So that's the litigation shit.